Have you ever wondered what would happen if a coach risked everything on a teenager no one believed in? 17 years old. No college snaps. No warning. Just one phone call, and everything about Alabama football changed. When Nick Saban stepped down, the world paused. But someone didn't. Kalen DeBoer made a move so bold, so off-script, that it rewrote the future of the Crimson Tide before the team ever stepped on the field. While fans panicked, rivals laughed, and media spun chaos, Kalen saw something the world missed, a high school kid still skipping prom. And he didn't hesitate. He unleashed him. No soft introduction. No safety net. Just SEC-level warfare. And what happened next wasn't just surprising, it was historic. But why did Kalen bet on youth when the safe choice was to wait? What did he see no one else did? And why is this moment being called the rebirth of Alabama football? We're about to show you how one decision, one overlooked phenom, and one fearless coach changed the fate of an entire program. And here's the deal, this channel is on a mission, a collective mission. We need to hit 1,000 subscribers, 80,000 views, and 5,000 watch hours this week. If we hit that mark, we'll drop an exclusive new video revealing hidden truths and backstage realities never shared before. So, if you're doing something else, cooking, cleaning, scrolling, just leave this video running. Stay until the end. That's how we grow. That's how this movement becomes unstoppable. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and let's make this week legendary. Now, buckle up, because the real story is just getting started. What would make a coach risk his entire career on a teenage kid no one had seen play a single college down? That's not a metaphor, it actually happened. While everyone else was frozen in shock after Nick Saban's seismic retirement, Kalen DeBoer was already moving. Behind the scenes, unnoticed by fans and ignored by rivals, he made one phone call. That moment, 30 seconds, mid-flight, would spark the most audacious bet Alabama football had ever seen. And it didn't come from a recruiter, a booster, or a returning captain. It came from a new face in a collapsing kingdom. The call wasn't to a 5-star veteran or a transfer portal sensation. It was to a 17-year-old. A kid who should have been at prom. Ryan Williams. At the exact moment most people expected Alabama to crumble, Kalen placed the future of the Crimson Tide in hands barely old enough to drive. But it wasn't reckless. He'd seen the tape. The acceleration. The way Ryan cut, read defenses like a veteran, and moved like gravity bent around him. He wasn't calling just a recruit, he was calling a revolution. You're the future. Don't wait. Let's do this now. And Ryan listened. But this wasn't a Disney story. The chaos Saban left behind was real. Transfer portal madness. Nil confusion. A fanbase stuck between nostalgia and panic. Internally, doubts crept in. Some staff advised against it. Too young. Too risky. Not SEC ready. But Kalen didn't flinch. Not once. He'd seen something they hadn't. Something raw. Something real. And while Alabama's enemies prepared for a rebuilding year, DeBoer prepared for a rebirth. What he did next wouldn't just shock the league. It would resurrect belief in a team that once ruled college football, and now, might again. What happens when you step into the shoes of a living legend, knowing every move you make will be judged against a ghost? From the second Kalen DeBoer landed in Tuscaloosa, he wasn't introduced, he was interrogated. Not by media or rivals, but by the whispers of tradition. He didn't recruit like Saban. He didn't speak like Saban. And in the minds of many, that meant one thing, he wouldn't win like Saban. But Kalen didn't arrive to copy a system. He came to challenge its very DNA. And that terrified people. Not just outside the program, but within it. At the first team meeting, the tension was palpable. Older players, still mourning their old coach, watched him like he was temporary. Assistants kept one foot out the door. Even boosters, those eternal power brokers, were silent in the halls. Kalen wasn't just fighting to lead, he was fighting to be heard. But he said little. He listened. He watched. Because somewhere in that room, he believed, was the peace no one else was seeing. A spark buried under doubt, ready to ignite. But only if he blocked out the noise and trusted his gut. Meanwhile, outside the walls, the headlines wrote their own story: Alabama enters decline, DeBoer isn't ready, Saban's ghost looms large. And it did. For every play Kalen drew, every decision he made, he knew that legacy was watching. One misstep, one failed gamble, and he'd become just another name forgotten between eras. But the pressure didn't crush him, it carved him. In silence, he searched. For one player. One chance. One reason to believe Alabama could not just survive, but become something entirely new. That search would lead to a phone call, and to a kid no one expected. What kind of coach makes his first call from the sky, not to a coordinator, not to a recruiter, but to a 17-year-old? While the college football world debated Kalen DeBoer's hire, he was already airborne, literally. On a flight to Tuscaloosa, with a future he didn't yet own and a program he hadn't yet met, he took out his phone and dialed a number that would change everything. Ryan Williams. A name lost in the noise. A phenom, yes. But a ghost now. Decommitted. Drifting. Gone, until Kalen interrupted the narrative. No pep talk. No script. Just instinct. Ryan, I know what they see. I see what they don't. You're the one. Not someday. Now. There was a pause. A long one. Because Ryan wasn't just making a career decision, he was weighing the weight of history. The program was reeling. Fans were unsure. And he was just a teenager with a future most wouldn't risk. But that voice on the line wasn't asking him to follow. It was inviting him to lead. And Ryan, who'd been treated like a prospect by others, felt something else entirely in that moment: belief. That night, Ryan didn't sleep. His friends were prepping for graduation parties. He was prepping for the biggest decision of his life. He'd dreamed of playing for Alabama. But not like this. Not under fire. Not under doubt. And yet, that's what made it real. What made it urgent. As the sun rose, he sent one message: I'm in. Just like that, Alabama had its most important recruit back, not just physically, but spiritually. He wouldn't be a redshirt. He wouldn't be protected. He'd be unleashed. Because Kalen DeBoer saw something no one else did. And now, the world would have to catch up. How do you train a 17-year-old to become the face of Alabama football without anyone noticing? Ryan Williams didn't walk into the facility like a savior. He arrived quietly. No press, no fanfare. Just sneakers on linoleum and a duffel bag bigger than his confidence. Kalen didn't parade him in front of cameras. He shielded him from the frenzy. Practices were closed. Media access was limited. And in those hidden reps, something started happening. Players stopped underestimating. Coaches stopped whispering. Ryan didn't just survive the drills, he owned them. He beat juniors in one-on-ones. Memorized the playbook faster than half the returning offense. His routes. Surgical. His focus. Locked in. But not everyone was convinced. It's just practice, they said. Let's see him in pads. Behind closed doors, doubts remained. The locker room respected him, but didn't believe in him. Not yet. And DeBoer. He watched in silence, arms folded, letting the room feel the shift. Because belief can't be demanded, it has to be earned. Every dropped pass, every hit Ryan took and stood back up from, was a seed planted in that skeptical soil. Then came the scrimmages. Still no cameras. No leaks. But inside, the buzz grew. One assistant texted another, "This kid's different." And word reached the upper brass. Boosters began asking questions. Why isn't he being promoted? Is he really playing? But Kalen wasn't ready to reveal his hand. Not yet. He was playing a longer game. One that wasn't about hype, it was about explosion. Controlled, calculated, and timed to perfection. Because when Ryan finally touched that ball in front of 90,000 fans, Kalen wanted the world to feel the shockwave all at once. What happens when a secret becomes too powerful to stay hidden, but the world still isn't ready to see it? As fall camp closed in, the buzz inside the facility grew deafening, but only inside. Outside, the world saw silence. Ryan's name was barely mentioned in pressers. Depth charts excluded him. Beat writers speculated he'd redshirt, maybe contribute in late-season blowouts. And that's exactly how Kalen wanted it. Because while fans debated quarterback battles and returning linemen, Kalen was preparing something else entirely. Not a scheme. A reveal. Behind those walls, the real plan was unfolding. Kalen had already made the call, Ryan would start. Not maybe. Not conditionally. But the staff wasn't aligned. We'll break him. Too young. He's not ready for SEC speed. Some even whispered it might ruin Kalen's credibility. But Kalen didn't waver. Not in meetings. Not in private. He simply watched the tape. Watched Ryan turn senior DBs into practice cones. Watched him absorb hits and come back for more. What Kalen saw wasn't just skill. It was certainty. And in football, certainty is everything. Game week arrived. The opener, Western Kentucky. A cupcake on paper. A landmine for narratives. Kalen said nothing. Ryan's name wasn't on the preview sheet. The opposing DC didn't even game plan for him. But those inside the program felt it. The air had changed. Receivers gave him space. Coaches watched him differently. And Ryan? He just kept his head down, until the night before the game. In the quiet of the locker room, he walked up to Kalen and said, "Don't hold back." That was the moment Kalen knew. The storm was no longer coming. It was already here. What do you do when a teenager touches the ball twice, and sets the entire SEC on fire? The moment Ryan Williams stepped onto the field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, the crowd barely reacted. No one expected him to get reps, let alone make noise. But Kalen DeBoer wasn't bluffing. First quarter. Play action. Ryan slips into the flat, catches, cuts inside, and 84 yards later, he's in the end zone. The crowd freezes, then explodes. That wasn't just a touchdown. That was a statement. One touch. One score. And no one, not fans, not rivals, not even teammates, was ready for what they'd just seen. Later, on a seemingly meaningless third down, it happened again. This time, 55 yards. Another touchdown. 2 touches. 2 TDs. Suddenly, cameras zoomed. Announcers scrambled for background. Is he 17? Twitter lit up. ESPN broke protocol to show back-to-back replays. People weren't just impressed, they were stunned. This wasn't a gadget play. This was dominance. Ryan moved like he belonged on Sundays, not in a high school prom photo. And in that moment, Alabama didn't look like a team in transition. It looked like it had skipped rebuilding, and jumped straight to rebirth. Back on the sideline, Kalen didn't celebrate. He just nodded, as if confirming what he already knew. But the rest of college football wasn't calm. Phones rang across SEC coaching rooms. Analysts rewrote depth charts. Fans began chanting his name. Ryan. 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 What was supposed to be a slow rollout had become a seismic shift. A 17-year-old just took over Alabama's offense, and no one, not even his defenders, knew how to stop it. And the best part? He wasn't even supposed to play. But Kalen knew. Kalen always knew. How fast can one game rewrite a national narrative? By sunrise the next day, Ryan Williams wasn't just a promising freshman, he was a headline. Every sports outlet had his face on the homepage. Who is Ryan Williams? 17-year-old shocks college football. The segment wasn't reserved for Alabama fans anymore. Casuals were watching. Rivals were obsessing. Analysts who dismissed DeBoer a week ago were now praising his bold vision. But inside the program, the tone didn't change. Kalen didn't smile more. Ryan didn't speak louder. Because they both knew, the next chapter would be harder. The world began making comparisons. Devonta Smith. Julio Jones. Jalen Waddle. But Ryan wasn't them. He didn't have the recruiting fanfare. No viral high school highlights. Just tape. And instinct. And grit. That's what Kalen saw. That's what the others missed. As talk shows argued whether Ryan was the next Alabama legend, opposing coaches were splicing film, desperate to decode how a kid this young made their veteran DBs look foolish. But no matter how much they watched, the answer wasn't in the routes or the timing. It was in the timing of belief. Kalen believed first. Meanwhile, the old guard stirred. Some Crimson Tide fans weren't sold. One game. Let's see it against Texas. Others whispered that DeBoer got lucky. The pressure was mounting, again. But the locker room? It shifted. Veterans started asking Ryan questions. Sitting next to him during film. Walking behind him in drills. Not because he asked for it, but because production speaks louder than seniority. In 1 week, Ryan went from unknown to unavoidable. And Alabama football, once adrift in post-Saban fog, suddenly looked inevitable. Can a teenager survive the crucible of SEC defenses, or will the fire finally burn him? The noise was deafening heading into the Texas game. Critics labeled his debut a fluke. Analysts circled the date, predicting Ryan's collapse under real pressure. But Kalen didn't flinch. He doubled down. First drive, first snap, a designed route for Ryan. He broke a corner, juked a safety, and gained 47 yards before being dragged down. Not luck, precision. Against Tennessee, he burned 2 defenders on a 75-yard bomb. Georgia. A perfect post route sliced through their vaunted secondary. Each game added proof. This wasn't hype. This was history in motion. Still, the price of fame was steep. Late hits. Double coverages. Trash talk from seniors. One brutal hit left him gasping on the sideline. Trainers rushed over. But Ryan waved them off. I'm fine. And he was. That drive, he returned to the field, ran a crossing route, and dragged a cornerback 10 yards for a first down. Even opposing coaches were stunned. We game planned for veterans. We got torched by a high schooler. That's not even fair, one admitted post-game. Ryan wasn't just surviving the SEC, he was bending it to his will. But inside the Alabama locker room, a different story was unfolding. Quietly, Ryan started becoming more than a weapon. He became a presence. His work ethic rubbed off. His silence spoke volumes. Veterans respected him. Coaches trusted him. And Kalen? He began shaping the offense around him. Not just to maximize his production, but to redefine how Alabama played. This wasn't just a season. This was a system shift, built around someone who couldn't even vote yet. And week after week, Ryan didn't just meet the moment. He raised it. What if the defining season of a program almost never happened, because of one conversation? After the Tennessee game, something changed. Ryan had bruises on both legs, a limp in his step, and a silence in his eyes. He wasn't broken, but he was worn. Kalen noticed it immediately. At practice, Ryan missed a cue, his first all season. He avoided the weight room that day. It wasn't physical. It was something deeper. Fatigue. Pressure. Isolation. Kalen held a closed-door meeting with his staff. Some wanted to pull Ryan back. Rest him. Let him breathe. The kid had done enough, they said. Kalen didn't argue. That night, he sat in his office with the lights off, replaying clips from the season. Every route. Every hit. Every moment. He wasn't doubting Ryan's ability, he was questioning his own decision. Had he asked too much, too fast? Would history remember this as brilliance or exploitation? Then came the knock. Ryan. No words. Just a stare. You thinking of sitting me? He asked. Kalen paused, unsure how to answer. Then Ryan stepped forward and said something that stopped time. Don't protect me from the thing I was born to do. That moment wasn't about strategy. It was about conviction. Kalen looked at him, not as a coach, but as a man seeing another man become something else entirely. Okay, he whispered. We go. And from that night on, the doubt faded. Not because the pressure disappeared, but because Ryan had claimed it. He wasn't playing to prove people wrong anymore. He was playing to prove Kalen right. And when he stepped back onto the field the following week, there was no hesitation, no caution. Just purpose. That was the moment the Crimson Tide didn't just find its star. It found its identity. When does a freshman stop being the future, and start becoming the present? Mid-season hit, and something shifted. Not in Ryan's stats, but in his voice. Quietly, he began speaking up in meetings. Not to boast, but to challenge. After a dropped pass in practice, he turned to a veteran receiver and said, "We don't do that here." After a sloppy route, he pulled aside a freshman and walked him through the footwork. Coaches noticed. Not just his performance, but his poise. What started as a whisper behind closed doors had become a current sweeping through the team. Ryan wasn't just producing, he was leading. Off the field, the media tried to crack his shell. Interviews. Pressers. Headlines. The teenage takeover. But Ryan never fed the narrative. He spoke in short answers, deflecting praise, redirecting credit. "We've got a team full of dogs," he said after torching Georgia. "I'm just one of them." But his teammates knew better. They'd seen how he trained. How he studied tape alone after lights out. How he never posted a single highlight. For them, Ryan wasn't a prodigy, he was a standard. And that's when it hit everyone, the freshman wasn't chasing the culture. He was becoming it. Kalen saw it first, of course. But now, fans saw it too. They held up signs, "Freshman. Nah. Phenom." Children at games wore #1 jerseys with homemade "Ryan" stitched across the back. And still, he kept his head down. Still, he ran every route like it was his first. And every time he touched the ball, the crowd didn't just cheer, they believed. Because Ryan wasn't selling hope. He was embodying it. In a post-Saban world, where doubt had filled the silence, one teenager had become the voice no one expected, but everyone needed. What happens when tradition collides with transformation, and the crowd has to choose? By late season, Ryan Williams was the face of Alabama football. But not everyone embraced it. Whispers turned into criticism. Too much, too soon. What happened to earning your stripes? The old guard, fans, alumni, even some former players, questioned DeBoer's methods. Saban would have never done this, they said. And maybe he wouldn't. But that was the point. Kalen wasn't trying to preserve a dynasty. He was building a new one. One not rooted in hierarchy, but in hunger. And Ryan was its clearest signal. The backlash didn't faze Kalen. He'd seen resistance before. In lower leagues, smaller towns, tighter rooms. But Tuscaloosa was different. The shadows here stretched long. And when you rewrite the script, you risk burning the pages. Yet every time Ryan took the field, the noise quieted. Not because he silenced critics with words, but with results. Double teams didn't stop him. Defensive schemes bent around him. And as the stats piled up, something else did too: buy-in. From teammates. From coaches. Even from skeptical fans who'd booed weeks earlier, and were now holding their breath every time he touched the ball. Still, Kalen knew that belief was fragile. One misstep, one loss, and it could all collapse. So he coached tighter. Game plans were precise. Meetings were obsessive. And through it all, Ryan remained constant. Calm. Focused. Quietly aware that he wasn't just playing football, he was redefining what Alabama football could be. Not a shrine to the past, but a challenge to the present. And with every yard, every cut, every touchdown, he wasn't just winning games. He was winning hearts. Even the old ones. What if the boldest gamble becomes the foundation of something unbreakable? As the regular season closed, the numbers spoke for themselves. 48 receptions. 865 yards. 8 touchdowns. SEC Freshman of the Year. FWA Freshman All-American. National media called Ryan the most electrifying underclassman in college football. But for Alabama fans, the stats weren't the story. It was what they meant. That they could believe again. That this program wasn't fading into history, it was morphing, adapting, thriving. Because one coach saw past tradition. And one kid proved vision beats legacy. But it was never just about talent. It was about what Kalen DeBoer did when the pressure screamed for safety. He didn't flinch. Didn't fold. He looked at a 17-year-old and said, "Lead." And Ryan did. Not with bravado. With action. With precision. He carried the weight of expectation like it was oxygen. He didn't demand the spotlight, he deserved it. And the truth is, what began as a controversial experiment had become a cultural reset. Ryan Williams wasn't just Alabama's breakout star. He was its compass. A reminder that boldness isn't reckless when it's rooted in belief. So where do we go from here? That depends on all of us. This isn't just Ryan's story or Kalen's story, it's ours. This channel, this community, is building something together. And we have a mission: 1,000 subscribers. 80,000 views. 5,000 hours of watch time, this week. If we hit it, we drop an exclusive next video: truths never told, footage never shown, voices never heard. So let's do it. Like, comment, share, and keep this video running, even if you're multitasking. Let it roll. Because together, we're not just watching stories. We're writing them. And this? This is just the beginning.